In the last few parts of this series, I talked about validation, traceability, replay, and human review. Now let's bring all of that together. Once an AI system is live, the question is not just did the model produce a good output? The real question is what is the system allowed to do with that output? Can it act automatically? Does it need validation? Should a human review it? Should the action be blocked? Should the decision be logged? This is runtime governance. And my simple view is this: if governance does not change what a system does at runtime, then honestly, it is just documentation. Most enterprise AI governance starts in documents, policies, checklists, risk frameworks, approval processes. All of that is useful, but a document does not control a live AI system. A policy can say high risk outputs need review. Fine. But can the system actually detect high risk while it is running? Can it route the case to review? Can it block the action if needed? Can it create a record of what happened? That is the real question. If not, the policy is not governing execution. It is just describing what should happen. That is the gap. And that gap is where production AI risk shows up. On this slide, the policy document is on one side and the live execution path is on the other side. Input comes in, the model produces output, and action may happen. If policy has no path into that execution flow, then governance is disconnected. And disconnected governance does not make AI production ready. This is the runtime gap. In production AI, risk does not stop at the model output. The output usually triggers something. It may route a case, assign severity, call an API, send a response, update a record, or influence a business decision. If there are no runtime controls in that path, the system is basically trusting the model to be right every time. That is not a serious production operating model. You need checks before action happens. You need policy enforcement while the system is running. And you need an audit record if something goes wrong. Otherwise, when a bad decision happens, the team is stuck asking, what did the model see? Why did the system allow this? Was any policy check applied? Who reviewed this, if anyone? Can we trace the decision later? If the system cannot answer those questions, it has a runtime governance gap. Simple as that. The fixes is a runtime governance layer. Think of this as a control layer that decides what the AI system can actually do while it is live. It is not just a policy document. It is not just a pre launch checklist. It is the active control during execution. This layer can validate an output before it moves forward. It can route uncertain or high risk cases to human review. It can escalate critical cases. It can block outputs that violate policy. And it can log decisions so the organization has a traceable record. This is where the whole series comes together: validation, human review, traceability, replay. These are not separate ideas. Together, they form the operating layer for production AI governance. This is the difference between AI as a demo and AI as production infrastructure. A demo only needs to look good once. Production AI needs to behave safely again and again. This is probably the most important distinction in this episode. Policy intent is what we write down. Runtime enforcement is what actually happens in the system. A policy may say customer impacting high risk actions require review. That is intent. Runtime enforcement means the system detects that the action is customer impacting. It classifies the risk. It routes the case to the right review path. It blocks or approves the action. And it records what happened. That is enforcement. The same applies to privacy, safety, compliance, security, and auditability. A policy should not just sit in a document, it should translate into detection, routing, review, blocking, and audit records inside the system. That is what turns governance from a retail rule into an operating mechanism. Otherwise, it becomes governance theater. Looks good in a document, does nothing when a system is live. Governance also needs measurement. If governance is not measured, teams are mostly hoping it works. Every decision should teach the team something. How many outputs were accepted automatically? How many were routed to review? How many were escalated? How many were blocked? How often did humans override the system? How complete are the audit records? These are not vanity metrics. They are product signals. They tell the team whether the AI system is operating safely and effectively. If the review rate is extremely high, maybe the system is too conservative. Or maybe the validation rules are weak. If the block rate suddenly spikes, maybe something changed in the input pattern, model behavior, or policy rule. If audit completeness drops, that is serious production risk. The numbers on this slide are sample metrics. The exact threshold depends on the use case and risk profile, but the principle is same. You cannot improve governance if you cannot observe it. And if you are not learning from production behavior, you are just collecting the logs, not improving the system. Here is the takeaway. Enterprise AI needs governance that runs with the system, not only in documents, not only before launch, during execution. That is the difference between policy theater and production governance. This ties together the earlier parts of the series: validation before action, traceability and replay, human review at the right control points, and now runtime governance. Because a production AI system does not just need to generate useful outputs, it needs to validate, govern, trace, review, block, escalate, and improve over time. That is how AI moves from isolated automation to reliable enterprise infrastructure. Part 7 will bring this into an AI product management design framework. Governance should not be a document sitting outside the system. It should be a control layer running with the system. A policy that cannot affect execution is just guidance. Runtime governance is what turns that guidance into production control. That is how enterprise AI becomes reliable infrastructure.